Good evening, you're now with me, Handigo for TVS Nightline, and here are the headlines for tonight. Malaysia is confident in achieving 4 to 5% GDP growth this year despite the global headwinds. The Sarawak Labour Ordinance is expected to be amended shortly following final discussions between the Ministry of Human Resources and the Sarawak Premier's Office for Labour, Immigration and Project Monitoring. The United States has drafted a United Nations Security Council calling for a temporary ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. The United States has drafted a United Nations Security Council calling for a temporary ceasefire in the Gaza Strip and opposing an Israeli ground offensive on the southern city of Rafah. The draft seen by Al Jazeera said the Security Council should underscore its support for a temporary ceasefire in Gaza as soon as practical, based on the formula of all hostages being released while also lifting all barriers to the provision of humanitarian assistance at scale in Gaza.
Since October 7th, Washington has sought to shield its ally Israel from UN action and has twice vetoed Security Council resolutions. But it has also abstained twice, allowing the Council to adopt resolutions that aim to boost humanitarian aid deliveries to Gaza and called for urgent and extended humanitarian pauses in fighting. Now, this new U.S. draft resolution raises the idea of a ceasefire for the first time, but does not say there should be one straight away. It is not immediately clear when or if the U.S. draft resolution would be put to a vote. Meanwhile, Algeria, the current Arab member of the Security Council, put forward an initial draft resolution more than 2 weeks ago, which would demand an immediate humanitarian ceasefire in the Israel's war on Gaza. The Algerian draft resolution was due to be put to a vote today. U.S. Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield previously signaled that it would be vetoed, saying that it could jeopardize the sensitive negotiations on the captives taken by Hamas and other armed groups from Israel into Gaza on October 7th. Despite that, the Israeli military yet again hit Gaza with new airstrikes as world powers grappled with how to broker a ceasefire ahead of a United Nations Security Council vote. The United Nations raised concerns about the humanitarian crisis in the blockaded region, cautioning that shortages of food might result in a surge of easily avoidable child fatalities, but the pleas had fallen on deaf ears. After enduring 4 months of continuous conflict, significant portions of the Palestinian territory have been decimated, driving 2.2 million individuals to the verge of starvation and displacing 3/4 of the populace. Following months of grappling for a cohesive approach, all European Union members except Hungary advocated on Monday for an urgent humanitarian halt. The city of Rafah, which has remained unoccupied by Israeli ground troops thus far, serves as the primary gateway for critically needed aid supplies for neighboring Egypt. Israeli airstrikes targeting the city are impeding humanitarian efforts, while regular border closures are disrupting food supplies. The shortage of food and water has led to a significant increase in malnutrition among children and women throughout the region, a situation poised to raise the already devastated level of children's death. The enclave's health ministry on Monday said more than 29,000 Palestinians had been killed since October 7th.
The Sarawak Labour Ordinance is expected to be amended shortly following final discussions between the Ministry of Human Resources and the Sarawak Premier's Office for Labour, Immigration and Project Monitoring. Its Minister Stephen Sim said his department has made suggestions for improvements to the state government so that uniformity can be achieved and harmonised with the Employment Act 1955, Amendment 2022.
Sebab dia ada beberapa pindaan yang telah dibuat kepada akta kerja yang belum lagi dimasukkan dalam Sarawak Labour Ordinance. Jadi kita nak seragamkan, contohnya waktu bekerja, gaji dan sebagainya. Dan YB Datuk Gerawat telah berjanji akan bawa perbincangan ini ke Kabinet Negeri. Jadi saya yakin dengan kerjasama dan hubungan rapat antara KSM dengan my counterpart YB Gerawat dan tim beliau, saya yakin kita akan dapat mencapai kata putus untuk melaksanakan pindaan Sarawak Labour Ordinance pada masa yang dekat.
He said this when met by reporters at the Kasuma Madani program and Chinese New Year 2024 at a hotel today. Earlier in his speech, he announced that the Sarawak Labour Ordinance would be presented at the Sarawak State Legislative Assembly Dun in May. For the record, the amendments to the Sarawak Labour Ordinance have been finalised before being submitted to the federal government for consideration and approval. Deputy Minister in the Premier's Department for Labour, Immigration and Project Monitoring, Datuk Gerawat Gala, explained that these amendments would benefit workers in Sarawak who were previously only protected in Peninsular Malaysia. He added that these amendments would also ensure that the Sarawak Labour Ordinance aligns with the International Labour Organization ILO Convention. Now, Malaysia is confident in achieving 4 to 5% gross domestic product GDP growth this year, despite the global headwinds. Second Finance Minister Datuk Seri Amir Hamzah Zizan said there is a sign that indicates the global inflation environment is becoming more stable, which would help the adjustment and improve growth for the global economy, including Malaysia.
I think we saw similar responses in a lot of economies of the world. That meant growth in the world had to slow down, because when you have interest rates going out that high, it will have a dampening effect on growth, and that actually helped pull back inflation a little bit. So Malaysia, as an export-oriented country, will of course have some effect on that dampening growth. But I think now we've seen indications that the world has gotten to a much more stable inflation environment, and then adjustments in terms of interest rates and a much more facilitative forward position is coming into the world, which should lead back to a better growth position. So Malaysia would be in a position to enjoy a little bit of that going up forward.
Hamzah said 2024 will be all about executing the Madani economy framework and all the policies that the government put out last year. He also said the Madani economy is a fundamental mooted by Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim to continuously drive the growth of the country's economy by identifying the most effective ways to boost the economy and grow the industry sector.
The response of the country is actually guided by the economy Madani framework, which we say raise the ceiling. Raise the ceiling means bring in FDI, bring in better investments in the country, raise the quality of industries that actually perform in Malaysia. In that process, you will get multiple benefits. You will get better revenue because industries will invest, will pay tax and so on. But also you lift up the quality of jobs that exist in Malaysia.
He said Malaysia's economic growth for this year would also be anchored by sustained foreign direct investments, FDI, and domestic direct investment, DDI.
The recent appointment of Dato' Mutang Tagal as the 20th Senate President is a historic moment for the Dayak community, particularly for the Orang Ulu, for being the first to be appointed to the top post. Deputy Minister in the Premier's Department for Labour, Immigration and Project Monitoring, Datuk Gerawat Gala, is confident that Mutang is able to serve the nation well in his new role given his extensive experience. He added that the appointment is also a testament of the strong role that Gabungan Party Sarawak GPS continues to have in the unity government. Mutang, who is a lawyer by training, served for 2 terms as Bukit Mas Member of Parliament from 1982 to 1990 before the constituency was redelineated into the Limbang and Lawas seats. Mutang succeeded Tan Sri Dr. Wan Junaidi Tuanku Jaafar, who stepped down from the role to become the 8th Governor of Sarawak on January 26. Now, the National Training Week NTW 2024 is set to provide golden opportunities for over 10,000 Sarawakians to take part in more than 100 courses and various skill training for free. Minister of Human Resources Stephen Sim said his ministry has allocated 20 million ringgit in funding for these courses as a commitment to strengthening the workforce sector in the state.
Sebab our focus point kali ini ialah tahun ini kita akan go out dari segi latihan kemahiran untuk pekerja. Sebab kalau kita lihat kepada hala tuju Kerajaan Sarawak dengan terutamanya melalui skor Sarawak Corridor of Renewable Energy, ini merupakan satu hala tuju yang besar, dijangka akan menjana lebih 300 bilion ringgit dalam parabulan menjelang 2030. Jadi ini memerlukan pekerja, terutamanya pekerja yang berkemahiran. Jadi we will assist dari segi itu untuk memastikan pasaran kerja yang kompeten menyahut cabaran ekonomi abad ke-21 ini, ekonomi hijau. And so we will go out dari segi latihan kemahiran di Sarawak.
According to SIM, the program received positive response in Sarawak in 2023, where over 2,500 Sarawakians were trained for free. This year, the program, which is scheduled to take place from June 24th to 30th, has been expanded to include courses targeting participation from various segments of the community, including school students, university students, workers, and senior citizens. National Film Development Corporation Malaysia, FINAS, will collaborate with TV Sarawak, TVS, to develop the creative industry in Borneo, especially Sarawak, to the international level. Chief Executive Officer of FINAS, Dato' Azmer Saifuddin Mutalib, said the collaboration is part of the initial preparations ahead of Visit Malaysia 2026, where Sarawak would be promoted as one of the tourist destinations through creative content.
Kita nampak Borneo Content ni ada satu keunikan di mana kita boleh menjual brand Borneo ini bersama konten-konten daripada Sarawak itu untuk penonton ataupun mass market nanti. Seterusnya adalah Visit Malaysia, iaitu pada tahun 2026, di mana I think Sarawak merupakan salah satu destinasi yang kita boleh promosikan tourism melalui konten ataupun filem dan TV ini.
Commenting further, Azmer said TVS as a state broadcasting station already has its own market access, which enables it to identify the viewers' demand, which will enable it to produce quality content such as films and dramas to be marketed on an international level.
So sebagai stesen penyiar, mereka ada melalui program-program pitching, program-program untuk mengenal pasti kebahagiaan ataupun demand on the viewer. Di sinilah di mana FINAS dapatkan input daripada TV Sarawak, di mana kita boleh bekerjasama untuk membangunkan industri kreatif ini, terutama kepada Sarawak dan Borneo, untuk jadikan dia sebagai satu landasan atau platform untuk menghasilkan konten lebih berkualiti. Dan insya-Allah dengan adanya hasil kualiti nanti kita boleh insya-Allah eksportkan konten-konten tersebut kepada serantau ASEAN ataupun global.
He said this when met by TVS reporters after visiting Sarawak Media Group on Tuesday. Meanwhile, TVS Chief Executive Officer Kushairi Abang welcomes FINAS's close cooperation to help develop the new art and creative industry in Sarawak.
Kita perlu nasihat dan guidance daripada pihak FINAS yang mana memang sudah berpuluh tahun berpengalaman dari dalam bidang seni dan industri kreatif ni, ya. So we welcome dia orang punya guidance, and FINAS is also part of our committee dalam evaluation untuk pitching, ya. So we will continue our working relationship with them, and whereby FINAS boleh juga memberi tunjuk ajar kepada kita dan juga kepada industri kreatif yang baru di Sarawak.
Thank you for staying with us. The ringgit is set to strengthen against the US dollar this year following the expected US Federal Open Market Committee decision to cut rates from July 2024. Second Finance Minister Datuk Seri Amir Hamzah Azizan said the US Federal Authority has also reached the deadline for an interest rate hike, and it is projected to be a strengthening factor for the ringgit this year.
The Fed has signaled that they have probably reached the end of their interest rate hiking period. So we expect that this year we should see the interest rates being chipped off by the US. And as that chips off, if there are no material geopolitical events, we should see the ringgit strengthen throughout the year. So I think we need to react not on an emotion basis. We need to react based on what we can see and what we can manage and what is a fair balance at this point of time.
Hamzah added that efforts made by Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim and Minister of Investment, Trade and Industry Tengku Datuk Seri Zafrul Abdul Aziz to attract foreign direct investment or FDI will play an important role in strengthening the domestic economy as well as providing boost to the ringgit's performance. Commenting on the move to peg the ringgit, he said the move is not necessary as the situation is different than the 1998 Asian financial crisis.
I think you must look at when Malaysia put the ringgit and took it off the trading environment in 1998 during the crisis. It was reacting to a very different scenario out there. It was also reacting to a different financial capacity of the country. By that time, the Asian financial crisis was hitting very, very hard. So an immediate response was actually needed. But there was consequences of that response. So when we took it out, we went counter to what a normal monetary policy would have dictated, and made it harder for people to accept that Malaysia has now come back to the normal state. So there were trade-offs that we had to do. Today, if you look at the reserve basis of the country, you look at the debt exposure of the country, you look at the financial liquidity that is actually in the market, Malaysia doesn't need to peg its currency.
Additionally, Hamzah said the current OPR rate is at a fair level to help the country's economic growth.
The government remains committed to safeguarding the welfare of the needy in the country, including in education, and is ready to collaborate with relevant parties for them. Hence, Minister in the Prime Minister's Department for Religious Affairs, Dr. Muhammad Naim Mokhtar said, via the Federal Territory Islamic Religious Council, MAIWP, efforts will be made to enhance the educational requirements of classes organised by the Street Children Foundation and address other pertinent needs.
This will ensure that street children in Chao Kit especially will receive adequate educational support and are not disadvantaged in their learning journey. He said this when met by reporters after conducting a visit around Chao Kit on Monday night. MAIWP will provide support such as rental assistance for premises, books and contributors to volunteer teachers offering free education. Additionally, they will explore the possibility of adding more teachers to meet educational needs. Meanwhile, Pertubuhan Jejak Jalanan Chief Activist Azhan Adnan said that the NGO is conducting classes for needy children in open spaces such as the grounds of Menara Raja Laut and the parking area in front of a Mama restaurant. The teaching staff consists of 4 volunteer teachers who provide religious education and academic classes, including teaching Malay, English, science and mathematics 4 times a week. The NGO is currently in the process of renovating the premises of the Homeless Transit Centre owned by the organisation, which was previously used as a temporary housing for the homeless, to be adapted as an educational centre for needy children in the area.
Lee Chong-wei said he feels like giving up on Malaysian badminton and warned ahead of the Olympics that drastic changes were needed to rescue the sport in the country. The Malaysian badminton legend spoke out after Malaysia lost 3-0 to China's backup team in the final of the men's competition at the Asia Team Championships in Kuala Lumpur on Sunday.
China were far superior despite not fielding their strongest side. The silver medal won by Malaysia couldn't hide the fact that men's singles lacked depth and some doubles players couldn't beat lower-ranked opponents. Meanwhile, India lifted the women's crown, with hosts Malaysia failing to get beyond the quarterfinals. The tournament offered ranking points towards this summer's Paris Olympics. Lee was quoted as saying by the Star newspaper that Malaysia badminton will only go downhill from here if nothing is done. The longtime former world number one said Malaysia's badminton authorities had to do more to promote younger players, while accusing the players of lacking discipline and commitment. According to Lee, drastic changes must be made, or else the country will be left far behind and badminton will no longer be one of the top sports in the country.
Dozens of bloodied bodies have been found along a remote stretch of road in Papua New Guinea's highlands on Monday. The incident occurred near the village of Wapinamanda, about 600 kilometers northwest of the capital port, Moresby.
Police Commissioner David Manning said as many as 64 tribal fighters had been killed in an ambush by a rival group in the early hours of Sunday, although officials later said the number was still unclear. Dozens of stripped and bloodied bodies were found lying by the side of the road and piled up on the back of a flatbed truck. Some men had limbs hacked and were left naked by the road with beer bottles or cans placed on their chests. Manning said, based on the police report, gunfights were ongoing in nearby valleys and the total number of dead and injured is still being assessed. Describing the incident as a disgraceful act of barbarity, Manning said additional security personnel had been deployed to the area to restore order. The rugged and lawless area has been the scene of tit-for-tat mass killings between rivals Sikin, Ambulin, Kekin, and other tribesmen for years, with each retaliatory attack fueling a fresh round of atrocities.
In the face of a quickening Asia-Pacific arms race, Australia earlier today outlined a decade-long plan to double its fleet of major warships and boost defense spending by an additional $7 billion. And under the plan, Defense Minister Richard Marles said the country will procure a navy of 26 major surface combatant ships, the largest since the end of World War II.
The announcement comes after a massive buildup of firepower by rivals China and Russia, and amid growing confrontation between nervous US-led allies and increasingly bellicose authoritarian governments. Marles added that Australia will get 6 Hunter-class frigates, 11 general-purpose frigates, 3 air warfare destroyers, and 6 state-of-the-art unmanned surface warships. Adding to that, he said at least some of the fleet will be armed with Tomahawk missiles capable of long-range strikes on targets deep inside enemy territory, a major deterrent capability. The plan would see Australia increase its defense spending to 2.4% of gross domestic product, above the 2% target set by its NATO allies. Some of the ships will be built in Adelaide, ensuring more than 3,000 jobs, but others will be sourced from US designs and a still undecided design to come from Spain, Germany, South Korea, or Japan.
Now wrapping up the Nightline, the Eiffel Tower, one of the world's top tourist attractions, will remain closed for a second straight day on February 20th as its staff extend a strike in protest over the way the monument is managed financially. As a result, the tower's operator has advised ticket holders to check its website before showing up or to postpone their visit. Meanwhile, the stoppage is the second strike at the monument within 2 months for the same reason. A union representative has criticized its operator for its business model that it says is based on an inflated estimate of future visitor numbers while underestimating construction costs.
C'est-à-dire qu'on a vraiment l'impression que dans les années à venir, la ville veut vider les caisses de l'entreprise. Donc elle veut faire passer, alors qu'on a vécu la période du Covid comme tout le monde, on est resté fermé 1 an, on a beaucoup de dépassements de travaux, plus de 120 millions de dépassements de travaux, on a un endettement de 100 millions qui n'était pas prévu. La ville là souhaite faire passer, a déjà fait passer la redevance de 8 à 16 millions par an, et maintenant veut faire passer la redevance de 16 millions à 50 millions par an, ce qui représente plus de 40% de notre chiffre d'affaires brut.
The Eiffel Tower, Paris's most famous landmark, attracts nearly 7 million visitors a year, around 3/4 of them foreigners. However, during the COVID-19 pandemic, numbers dropped sharply due to closures and travel restrictions, but recovered to 5.9 million in 2022. Last year, it attracted 6.3 million visitors. At the same time, visitor numbers to Paris are expected to swell this summer as the French capital hosts the Olympic Games. In a joint statement on Monday, the CGT and FO unions called on the city of Paris to be reasonable with their financial demands to ensure the survival of the monument and the company operating it.
A bill that will enable press freedom in the country is in its final phase. Communications Minister Fahmi Fadzil said the process to establish the Malaysian Media Council MMC bill has taken some time due to consultations with the Attorney General's chambers, and it needed to be considered and decided upon by the Cabinet.
Kalau kita tidak mendepani zaman, maka kita akan dibelakangi. Jadi saya harap dengan ada kod etika ini, prinsip seperti kebebasan bersuara itu memang kita akan pertahankan dan ia termaktub dalam perlembagaan. Tapi masa yang sama perlu ada satu peningkatan kesedaran dan skill kemahiran di kalangan wartawan untuk mendepani zaman, termasuk dalam isu AI dan media sosial.
Fahmi said this during the launch of the Malaysian Code of Ethics for Journalists on Tuesday. According to statistics provided by the Ministry of Human Resources, there are a total of 9,750 media accreditation card holders in Malaysia, and more than half of them are freelance journalists. Through the bill, the ministry can ensure that the welfare of freelance journalists is also taken care of, especially through the Employees Provident Fund or EPF and the Social Security Organisation SOCSO. Moreover, there are concerns over how swift news is being published through online media.
Saya secara peribadi, juga kementerian dan Jabatan Penerangan, cakna dan pada masa yang sama merasa perubahan-perubahan teknologi yang berlaku mendatangkan kesan kepada industri ataupun kepada syarikat-syarikat media. Ramai yang mengadu kepada saya bahawa sebagai contoh advertising expenditure, jumlah yang dibelanjakan untuk iklan setiap tahun berkurangan dan lebih banyak daripada jumlah itu dibelanjakan ke arah media-media sosial. Maka di sini perlu ada satu bukan hanya perbincangan, tapi para wartawan juga dilengkapkan untuk menyaingi dan menyediakan perkhidmatan yang ingin dinikmati oleh para pembaca.
The most concerning aspect of online medium is how fake news spreads faster than those that are verified. He then called on the Information Department, JAPAN, to assess the suitability of extending the validity period of media accreditation cards for international media practitioners, currently requiring annual renewal, in contrast to the 2-year validity period for local media. The matter was also considered as many Malaysians are also involved in providing news for international news hubs, but are based locally.
See the world closer with TVS as we bring you the latest news updates both locally and internationally. For more headlines anytime, anywhere, just head on to our official website at tvsarawak.my or follow us on our social media platforms. Those were the updates on TVS Nightline. I'm Handy Gui. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.